Elsewhere, many candidates have been blocked from even getting on the long list, let alone being voted on by local party members. One candidate who knows what that feels like is Maurice Mcleod, a councillor in South London who was blocked from making the long list in Camberwell and Peckham. And I'm joined by Maurice now. Maurice,
Hey,
explain to our audience the process of seeking to become a Labour. I'll start that again, Maurice. How are you doing? You good?
I'm well. How are you? How are you?
Good. I'm well, thank you. Explain to our audience the process of seeking to become a Labour candidate and how precisely you were blocked.
Yeah. Once a seat becomes open, if you're a member and you're, of good standing or whatever, you can put your name in, for that seat. There's a sort of application process that gets looked through, and I assume they make sure that, you're at least ticking the boxes. Then it gets to a bit where they're going to go and decide the long list, but first you sort of run around trying to get endorsements and showing people who you are and hoping that you can get people to say, yeah, this is a good candidate for me. I happen to get Unite and ASLEF and a sort of string of mainly left-wing MPs, but also anti-racist sort of activists and journalists, and I had a good spread. But before you're sort of put on a long list, there's a process, I can never say that, a due diligence process where your social media, you're Googled, everything's trawled through to make sure that in theory, to make sure that you're fit to be an MP, that you haven't done or said anything crazy that's going to sort of really shame the party. Now, that's the bit that I've got stopped at, and I think it's kind of important to say that I was probably a little bit naively confident, because absolutely I'm on the left and I'm very vocally on the left, and I do the picket lines, and people know that, and I've never hidden that. But I'm also a lifelong anti-racist campaigner, and until a couple of weeks ago I was running one of the nation's national anti-racism charities in Race on the Agenda. I have been a journalist for 30 years. I was political editor of The Voice nearly 30 years ago. I've been a councillor, for 2 terms, recently re-elected in Wandsworth, where we took the council for the first time from the Tories in 44 years. And so I kind of thought, maybe a little bit naively, that the party would go, oh, okay, yeah, he's on the left, but he's a reasonable person. He's a proper upstanding person, and there's nothing untoward about him. Not least because I've been through since all of these events happened, I've been through 4 selection processes, twice as a councillor, once for a GLA seat, and once for the parliamentary seat for Vauxhall, where I was longlisted. So it kind of, to be honest, I kind of avoided getting into the detail of what the 4 things are. They're so minuscule that I will happily talk about them, but I kind of think it's not the point. The point is, I wasn't blocked because of those. I was blocked because I'm a left winger, and there's a worry that someone's going to be troublesome or is going to be difficult if they, if they're too if they're too left wing. It's a absolute I would say effort by the party to make sure that a seat like Camberwell and Peckham, one of the safest Labour seats in the country, with the biggest black populations, they want to make sure that doesn't fall into the hands of someone who might, get them to try and be a bit transformative. So that's kind of what's happened to me. Like I say, I'll happily talk about the things that I was supposedly blocked about. But my worry is it then spirals into asking other questions and and it goes on forever. And I really don't think any of them are the point. And so I've been left just feeling very flat and a bit sort of disrespected by the party. I kind of thought I'd towed the line, and I've taken pictures with Keir. I'm on the left, but I'm not madly factional. In Wandsworth, we've got a spread of councillors. We work really, really well together, and they've all been incredibly supportive of me in this, in what's gone on. So yeah, I think things like that made me think maybe they would not be scared of me.
So just to be clear, one of the reasons why you were blocked is because you like to tweet by the Green Party. Is that correct?
That's one of them. Like I say, the points are I actually almost think it's a distraction talking about the actual reasons that they gave, because yeah, a tweet by a Green Party person that I then took down when I was told to, a dispute between sort of bits of the Labour administration in Tottenham, and I sided with the council tenants and was a little bit critical of the council. Both of those things, by the way, were before I was a councillor, so I was a political journalist. I was talking about politics. It was literally doing my job. And another thing where there's a statement from me as a journalist again where I state I give a comment on a controversial issue that was the line I give is exactly Labour's line, was exactly Labour's line at that time. So and the fourth thing is there was a Tory smear when I was quite a new councillor. It went nowhere. It ended up in no papers. There was no issue with me and my whip or anything like that. And as I say, it was 4 and a bit years ago. So I've been through loads of processes since. So it's a distraction to even get into the detail, I think, of each of those issues, because the real issue is they do not want socialists. They want to have as few socialists as possible to be in the Labour Party, I would argue.
I mean, I can see your point there, Maurice, but I also think people look at the very low caliber of politicians in this country, and then people are being blocked on the basis that they've liked to tweet by, the Green Party. I think most people think, well, it's not really that surprising when we have people completely incapable of actually solving problems. I mean, the Labour Party likes to pitch itself as, the party of diversity, inclusion, anti-racism. Do you think that all kind of rings hollow in so much as, yes, they're willing to embrace black and brown candidates, but only as long as they agree with the party line on certain issues? And if you don't, well, fundamentally, you're irrelevant.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the challenges with even how we think about diversity. The Tory cabinet is very diverse. Therefore, and what's the impacts on race equality going to be? Very little. So it's not just the race thing. I don't think. I think it's more. I think it's more of a socialist thing. I think it's more of a we. I'm not sure that they are really comfortable with anyone that's actively calling for change. That anyone that that I think that feels all too radical. It's a bit too we are a party of government. It's we're not really in vogue, basically, and I think it's because of the fear that we, as in left wingers and people that are active on picket lines and people that do turn up for demonstrations when black boys are shot in the street, those sorts of lunatics, we are seen as trouble. Instead of, this is, I guess, the bit that makes me sad. Instead of the party going, brilliant, this is really connecting us to communities that maybe we struggle to connect to, and let's be a broad church and can totally see why there's a space for left-wing anti-racist views. But I fear, I should say, that the party is scared of those voices. It makes me sad, to be honest. Yeah.
Final question: do you think the party's going backwards on this? Because you look at sort of the late 1980s, you had people like Diane Abbott going into Parliament. Even more recently, I think Clive Lewis came in during the 2010s, and it feels like somebody like Clive Lewis today would actually be blocked from a long list. That's my suspicion anyway. So do you think actually the Labour Party, when it comes to a wide range of values and opinions among black and brown communities, actually they're becoming far more constrained and less open than they were even 30, 40 years ago?
Yes, but then I think, and I'm not a Labour historian. I think that's part of the sort of problem. I'm not steeped in various Labour battles of the past. But I seem to remember, Labour governments or even Labour sort of oppositions, having left wingers in and right wingers in, and not being quite so controlled, non-message, and everyone on a straight line. Maybe I'm wrong, but that the memories I have of Labour were more like that, and I think that there was a genuine understanding that that there was a value brought by the left part of the party. I think at the moment, I keep saying I fear at the moment that that there's such a determination to go, we're not the last guy, we've changed, we're not Corbyn, we've moved on, that they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, to be honest. Have things got worse? I think we're in a moment of sort of because of desperation to appear changed. We're in this moment of I hope real extreme control, and it's not beneficial. Their life sort of quieter in future.
Maurice Mcleod, thank you for joining us this evening. Best of luck.